secret Targaryens are just littered all over Westeros. But not to worry, because this invasive species has a natural predator, none other than the Secret Blackfyre, of course. Because what this series needs, beyond, obviously more Secret Targaryens, are Secret Blackfyres. But, there probably is a point to a lot of the Secret Blackfyres, like the Secret Targaryens. How many times can I say the word secret in the next 10 seconds? Secret, secret, secret. But seriously, I don't talk nearly enough about how many potential Secret Blackfyres there are. So let's talk about it in this video. Let's touch on what a Blackfyre is again, if you have forgotten, and, who the potential Secret Blackfyres are. Hint, hint, the main ones are Young Griff, Fagon, and Varys. So as a quick reminder, the Blackfyres are a cadet branch of House Targaryen. They were a part of the family, and they kind of broke off into their own little thing, and they became a rival to the Targaryens in Westeros. Because the Blackfyres thought that they were the rightful kings, and the Targaryens were like, nah, we're the rightful kings, and, when families disagree over a pointy chair, they gotta fight until, everyone's dead. And yeah, lots of people died. The first Blackfyre was, of course, Daemon Blackfyre. He was originally the bastard son of Aegon IV, originally named Daemon Waters, because, he was a bastard. But when he was eventually knighted as a, very young teen or tween, he was very young, by his, sucky father, Aegon IV. Aegon IV gifted him Blackfyre, the ancestral sword of House Targaryen, which normally goes to the heir, and he gave it to his bastard that he enjoyed. Which, lovely sentiment, but, problems long term. And because Aegon IV is just, continually messy, even until his final fucking moment on his deathbed, he legitimized all of his bastards, which, when you legitimize a bastard, it, puts them in the line of succession. And so suddenly, Daemon, who's now taken the name Daemon Blackfyre after the sword, is a legitimate possible heir to the throne, though technically after his brother, Daemon Targaryen. It was Daemon II. Now, because everyone is rich and paranoid and, paranoid about keeping their riches, eventually, Daemon is convinced that, he would be a better king, and, I kind of get why, because he's the kingly-looking brother, if you know what I mean. He's the warrior, he's, the big, strong one, he looks like the big, tough Targaryen, it's an aesthetic thing. And, he seems like a chill dude. I'm not, taking anything away from him. And Daemon is, a little quieter, a little more bookish. He has several things kind of going against him at the time. He is the first Targaryen that marries a Martell. He brings, the Martells and Dorne, officially into the Seven Kingdoms, willingly, through his marriage. And so, naturally, the rest of the realm is kind of suspicious of him because they're all racist. And then also, he'd never gotten along with his father, Aegon IV, so that just caused, more issues when he, tried to clean house after Aegon IV left. It was the whole thing. The point is, though, they eventually got into the fights, war started and played out. Eventually, Daemon Blackfyre would die, but oh, don't you worry, because there were 4 more Blackfyre rebellions. Woo! These all took place over, the next 100 or so years, where basically another Blackfyre, descendant would be like, hey, well, I'm now the oldest Blackfyre boy, let me go fight so I can get my throne again. The Targaryens would typically be able to, hold them off, usually with the help of Brynden River's Black Raven. He's currently growing into a tree up beyond the wall and teaching Bran how to do, spooky magic shit. But we don't have to worry about Blackfyres anymore, oh no, because the War of the Nine Penny Kings was the last, big Blackfyre rebellion that happens about 40 years before the start of the main series, in which the last male Blackfyre, Meleys the Monstrous, which if you look at that illustration, you can see there is a tiny second head coming out of his shoulder. He had, one of those, what's it called? He, ate his twin in the womb, but then, didn't do a good job of it, so his twin is just meh. Anyway, Barristan, from the main series, Barristan Selmy, Barristan the Bold, fights him, kills him, thus ending the Blackfyre line and all these, treacherous pretenders to the throne. Yippee! But what if he didn't? Ooh. Because the thing to notice is that they very specifically say that the Blackfyres have died out in the male line. They say it enough that really it's kind of hard to ignore, and you could put 2 to 2 together and be like, oh, so if they're gone in the male line, they must be possibly still alive in the female line, yeah? And thus we get to the theorizing about Young Griff and Varys. There are other characters that people think are Secret Blackfyres, but these are the 2, I think, best candidates for the position, so I'm just going to talk about that. Okay. Young Griff is the better candidate for being a Secret Blackfyre, in my opinion, because it's so obvious. Because according to the books, Young Griff is actually Aegon Targaryen, Rhaegar Targaryen's young son, who was supposedly killed during the sack of King's Landing. But if you believe the very trustworthy Varys and Illyrio Mopatis, he was smuggled out and switched with another baby so that, the true heir to the throne could be saved. Like, okay. But it's double great because the true heir has now been, raised in secret far away, where he could be, raised alongside the small folk and learn to, think and empathize on his own. And that makes him great. Ooh. And he even looks like a Targaryen, which you can't really tell here because he has to dye his hair blue. Otherwise, you would be able to tell how Targaryen he was. Now, when people like to ask me, oh, is there a chance that, Aegon is really Aegon and, young Griff is really a Targaryen? I would say the evidence for him to be is that explanation. That's what they're saying, and I guess, as far as logic goes, yeah, I guess, 2 + 2 can equal 4, sure. But, 1 + 1 + 2 could also equal 4. So, there are other variables that can make him not really a Targaryen. I don't think that, he is. So I have 2 reasons why I think he is actually a Blackfyre. One, I'll explain, is the textual evidence in the book, and the other one is just from a bigger craft perspective. So book-wise, the biggest indicator, beyond the story sounding fishy, that he is actually a Blackfyre is the fact that he is the candidate being pushed by Varys and Illyrio Mopatis, who have a very well-known grift under their belt. Because when Varys was a young street urchin and he had his good friend Illyrio Mopatis, they would have this hustle where Varys would basically steal from thieves and then have Illyrio sell what the thieves had stolen from a rich person back to that same rich person. They would pocket the money and they didn't have to really work hard, So that hustle feels very reminiscent of this whole situation, which, yes, you could say, okay, well, if he is Aegon, that still kind of matches the pattern. Sure, but then there are other, tidbits that just make it feel slightly off. There's the story itself of how he was smuggled out, which just feels very unlikely and odd that Elia would have been chill, and then just the logistics of it all. And then if we want to get in-universe prophecy-wise, Daenerys gets this supernatural warning telling her to beware the Mummer's dragon. Now, you'll remember a mummer is an actor, a faker, a pretender, a la Varys. Varys was in a mummer's troupe. They would, perform plays and shit. And so the mummer's dragon is very clearly, sorry, Fagon over here. And then, of course, there's kind of the double meaning to it. The mummer's dragon, the pretender's dragon, it just feels it's fake. It's it's a paper dragon, basically. The play pretend dragon. And I get with most of the evidence I've just cited, it would still feasibly make sense for him to be a real Targaryen. Sure, I will concede that. But then if you think meta, if you think craft-wise, we have to remember George keeps mentioning and keeps setting up the Blackfyres as this threat to House Targaryen. Their role in history is weaved through the story so much. And that's a weird thing to do for, a group of people who are not going to show up at some point. And so when you have young Griff here, who is being propped up by Illyrio Mopatis, who he himself is said to have had a very pretty blonde wife who sounds very much like she could have looked like a Blackfyre. And you have Illyrio telling Tyrion when he meets him that I have debts of affection to repay. It's starting to sound ooh, maybe young Griff is Illyrio's son by his Blackfyre wife, and he and his friend Varys are trying to pull their big scheme once again, but just on a much grander scale. Now, as for Varys as a Blackfyre, it could be also that, Illyrio had that young wife who possibly was related to Varys if Varys is a Blackfyre himself. Because there is this question of why is Varys trying to do any of this? Is it just for the power and influence that he'll get? He kind of already has that. So is there a deeper motive possibly beyond the whole ooh, I'm trying to serve the realm? Because once again, cool, you're saying that, but why? So could it be that, Illyrio's wife, who was possibly a Blackfyre, is Varys' sister, or, some kind of relation, and Varys, had his stuff cut off, seemingly to, prevent him from being another Blackfyre pretender? Is he shaving his head to hide his very, telltale blonde hair? Was the reason he was, bought in the first place to use for that magic ceremony because he has king's blood in him? I don't know, but there's something going on with these two, because there is something fishy about this man, if you know what I mean. Okay, goodbye.